I flew down to my son's place without giving him a heads up and found my daughter-in-law dying alone in the ICU. Meanwhile, my son was cruising around town with some girls in the car I had bought him. I silently called the police and reported the car stolen. 2 days later, when they released him, he crawled back to me on his knees, only to find out I had signed everything over to his wife. Greetings, dear friends. Before I open the doors to my life and share this difficult story with you, I want to ask for a small favor. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It helps stories like this be heard. And drop a comment letting me know which state or city you're listening from. It would warm my heart to know how far my voice has traveled. Get comfortable. Happy listening. The airport greeted me with a hustle, the smell of roasted coffee and the weight of other people's expectations. But I didn't feel the joy of reunion that usually embraces mothers flying in to see their children. Inside, somewhere beneath my ribs, a heavy, icy knot of anxiety turned over. It was this very feeling that forced me, a disciplined woman used to planning everything a month in advance, to drop everything, buy a ticket for the next flight, and fly halfway across the country without a word of warning. In the tote bag slung over my shoulder lay 2 glass jars of homemade elderberry preserves, tart, dark, and healing, the kind my son Sterling loved as a child back in Chicago. Next to the jars was a soft plush teddy bear. Foolish, perhaps. Vada, my daughter-in-law, wasn't even pregnant as far as I knew, but in our last conversation, her voice sounded so thin, so fractured, that I just wanted to bring her something warm, something childlike and comforting. I walked out of the terminal and inhaled the air of this southern city. It felt thick and humid compared to our sharp northern winds. The phone in my coat pocket remained silent. I had been calling Sterling for 3 days straight. The rings were long and dragging, but no one answered. Vada had also dropped off the radar a week ago. You can't fool a mother's heart, the old folks say. I always thought it was just a poetic phrase until I felt that cold sting of fear myself. The Uber took me to their neighborhood in about 40 minutes. The building I saw through the window looked monumental and secure, a historic brick pre-war structure with high ceilings and a spacious courtyard. I bought this condo for them 3 years ago, right after the wedding. I wanted the young couple to have the head start I never had, so they wouldn't know what it meant to count pennies until payday, or live in a damp, cramped apartment. I thought a foundation of brick and money would guarantee their happiness. Lord, how wrong I was. Stepping off the elevator on the 3rd floor, I froze at the door. It was ajar, not wide open, but just enough, as if someone had left in a rush and forgot to pull it shut until it clicked. I pushed the heavy door with my shoulder and stepped inside. A stale, heavy stench hit me instantly. It didn't smell like home or the peach cobbler Vod loved to bake. It smelled like stale tobacco smoke and something sour, like wine that had turned to vinegar. Sterling swore to me he had quit smoking a year ago. "Mama, it's bad for you and it ain't the style anymore," he'd said, with that charming smile of his, the one that could always hustle anything out of me. Boots were scattered in the hallway. One stood upright, the other had been kicked against the coat rack, leaving a scuff mark on the cream-colored wallpaper. I walked into the kitchen, trying to step softly, though I didn't know who I was afraid of waking. A mountain of unwashed dishes towered on the table, alongside dried-up pizza crusts, empty bottles of expensive cognac, and right on the edge, a stack of unpaid utility bills, pink and white envelopes that no one had even opened. But that wasn't the scariest part. Next to the bills sat a small box of medication, heart drops and blood pressure pills that the doctor had prescribed to Vada 6 months ago. The package was sealed. The layer of dust on it spoke louder than any scream. It hadn't been touched in a long time. "Who are you looking for?" A raspy voice croaked from behind me. I jumped and turned around. An elderly woman in a faded housecoat, looking at me with a mix of curiosity and pity. "I'm Sterling's mother," I said. My voice was steady, but inside, everything was shrinking. "Where are they? Where is Vod?" The neighbor pursed her lips and shook her head. "Oh, honey, I don't know where your Sterling is. Out running the streets somewhere, I reckon. The music was booming in here till morning 3 days ago. But your girl Vada, the ambulance took her. When? I exhaled. 2 or 3 days ago. They carried her out on a stretcher. She didn't look conscious. Thin as a shadow. Nobody's been back since. The apartment's just been sitting open. I was about to call the police. The world tilted. I don't remember walking out of the building. I don't remember hailing a cab. Only one thought pulsed in my head. City General Hospital. That was the nearest trauma center where they took all emergency cases. The ER waiting room smelled of bleach and trouble. People in scrubs flashed before my eyes like white blurs. I, usually composed and polite, plowed through demanding the admissions list. The last name, Jefferson, Vada's married name, was found in the ICU log. The intensive care unit met me with silence, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of machines. They didn't want to let me in, but my presence, the look of a mother who would tear down any wall, forced the doctor to call the onset. Dr. Dubois came out to meet me, a tall man with tired eyes. He took off his glasses and wiped them on the edge of his coat, looking hard at me. "You the mother?" "Mother-in-law. Where is she? What's wrong with her?" "Pneumonia," he stated clearly. "Bilateral, advanced. But that's half the trouble. The body is exhausted, extreme dehydration and dystrophy. It looks like she hasn't eaten a proper meal in 2 weeks and lay with a fever of 104 for at least 5 days without any help. If the neighbors hadn't called 911 when they heard her fall, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I listened, and every word dropped into my soul like a stone into a well. Didn't eat, didn't drink, lay alone. Where was my son? Where was the husband who took a vow to be there in sickness and in health? "Can I see her?" I asked quietly. "For a minute. She's in a medically induced coma on a ventilator." I walked into the room. Vada lay on the high bed entangled with tubes and wires. Her face was whiter than the pillow. Her cheekbones looked so sharp it looked like they might tear through her skin. She had always been petite, but now she looked transparent. This wasn't just an illness. This was a slow murder by indifference. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room thickened, pressing on my chest. I needed to get out, to inhale the cool outside air before I screamed right there. I nodded to the doctor and, not feeling my legs, walked to the exit.
"Who shouldn't I let in?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She squeezed my hand with unexpected strength. Terror splashed in her eyes. "Sterling," she breathed out, and a tear rolled down her temple. "He turned off the heat, said it was expensive. I'm cold. Don't let him in." The monitors beeped more urgently. Her pulse spiked. The nurse was already running to us with a syringe. "Shh, shh, Veda, calm down." I stroked her head, feeling a wave of cold, murderous resolve rising inside me. "No one will touch you. Sleep." He turned off the heat in winter in an apartment where his sick wife lay, just to save a few bucks that he immediately blew on gas for his toy and cocktails for tramps. He was freezing her alive. I walked out of the room, leaving the doctors to work on Veda. My face had turned into a stone mask. There was no longer a mother, there was a judge, and the verdict had already been passed, final and without appeal. I stepped out of the hospital into the morning fog, feeling every step resonate in my head. But there was no fatigue. Liquid nitrogen flowed through my veins instead of blood. Veda's words, "He turned off the heat," became the final drop that turned my grief into a mechanism of destruction. An Uber took me to Odora's law office in 20 minutes. The city was just waking up. Street sweepers were clearing the sidewalks, unaware that someone's world was collapsing. Today, Odora was waiting for me, just as she promised at Adenoa. Her office smelled of expensive coffee and old paper, the smell of stability and law. "You look terrible, Olia," she said instead of a greeting, looking over my rumpled coat and the dark circles under my eyes. "But your eyes are burning in a way that scares me." "Let's get to business, Odora." I sat in the chair without taking off my coat. "Are the papers ready?" She silently slid a folder toward me. "Deed of gift for the condo in the name of V.A. Jefferson. Everything as you asked. But, Olia, before you sign, I has to show you something." Odora pulled another folder from the safe, a thin blue one. Yesterday, when I was pulling the title abstract, I stumbled upon an interesting inquiry. Your son, Sterling, applied to a payday loan company a week ago. A very shady one, I must say. And, I asked, feeling a new spring tighten inside. And as collateral for the loan, he provided copies of the documents for this very apartment. Olia? Odora lowered her voice. There was a power of attorney, allegedly from you, giving him the right to mortgage the property. She opened the folder and showed me a photocopy. I looked at my signature. It was almost perfect. Almost. Only the tail of the O was a little longer than I usually write. It's a forgery, I stated calmly. Crude, but for thugs it would pass. Odora nodded. He was planning to borrow a huge sum, and if he couldn't pay it back, and he wouldn't have, judging by his credit history, which I also checked, some tough guys would have come to you asking you to vacate the premises. He planned to sell the roof over his wife's and mother's heads to cover gambling debts. We're talking thousands, Olia. He's a gambler. I closed the folder. The puzzle was complete. That's why he saved on heating and medicine for Veda. He didn't need money for status. He needed it for the game. And when the money ran out, he decided to bet the apartment, my apartment, Veda's life. Where's the pen? I asked. Odora handed me a heavy Parker pen. I signed the deed with a sweeping, heavy hand, 3 copies. With every stroke, I cut off a piece of the past where my beloved son Sterling existed. Now there was only Sterling, Vance, fraudster, and sadist. Send it for registration immediately, electronically, so the apartment is hers in an hour. Will do, Odora nodded, stamping the official seal. What about the car? I'll handle the car myself. Leaving the notary, I dialed the dealership where I bought that cursed SUV. The manager, recognizing my voice, practically bowed over the phone. Alex, listen to me carefully. The car I bought last month is currently at the police impound lot. As the owner, I am authorizing you to pick it up with a tow truck. I'm sending the documents via courier right now. Of course, Miss Vance. Where should we deliver the vehicle? To service? No, to the trade-in department. I want it sold immediately. Sell it? Genuine surprise rang in the manager's voice. But it's brand new. You'll take a loss. I don't care how much I lose. Sell it today for whatever price the wholesalers offer. Main condition, the money must not be transferred to my account. I will send you the details for the hospital's charity fund. Purpose of payment? Treatment and rehabilitation of Veda Jefferson. I understand. We'll get it done. I hung up. Now Sterling had nothing. No wheels, no housing, no mother's purse. I had scorched the earth around him, leaving him naked on the ashes. My phone pinged again. A notification from the bank. The state filing fee had been paid. The apartment was going to Veda. I returned to the hospital to give the doctors a copy of the payment receipt for the treatment. The money from the car sale would arrive by evening, but I wanted them to know resources exist. Spare nothing. As I was leaving the chief physician's office, my phone came alive again. This time, it wasn't Sterling. It was an unknown woman calling. Hello? Is this Sterling's mother? The voice was squeaky, young, and entitled. Who is this? I asked in an icy tone. This is Candy. I was with Sterling in the car when those pigs arrested us. Listen, lady, your son told me the whip was his, that he's a big businessman, and now the cops are telling me the car is stolen. Are you running a family of con artists? I chuckled. Here they were, colleagues. Candy, I said softly, almost sweetly, Sterling lied to you. He has no car, he has no business, and he has no apartment either. He lives off a librarian wife and a retired mother. What? The phone squealed. But he promised me a trip to Miami. I'm afraid the only trip he's going on is a bus ride to the unemployment office. I hung up, and immediately another message arrived from Sterling. Mama, they released me. It was hell. I'm coming home. We need to talk seriously. You owe me an explanation for this circus. He was going home to an apartment that didn't belong to him anymore, to a wife he almost killed. He still thought he was master of the situation. I checked my watch. 2 hours had passed since I gave the order to the dealer. At that moment, Sterling's phone must have been on full volume, because I imagined him standing on the steps of the police station, dirty, angry, reading the message Candy had just sent him. I didn't see it, but I knew it would happen. Candy, judging by her voice, wasn't a girl who forgave shattered dreams of Miami. And indeed, a minute later, Odora sent me a screenshot. She was monitoring Sterling's social media. A post appeared on his wall from user Queen Candy. Yo, ladies, don't fall for this loser at Sterling Vance. The whip is his mama's. Bro is broke and his own mom called the cops on him. Embarrassing. Don't call me again, loser. I put the phone away. Checkmate. Son, you wanted the high life. You got the fame. Now let's see how you handle it. I got up and walked to the exit. I needed to meet him not at home, but at the hospital, where the truth lay. The truth he was running so hard from. I took a position in the lobby, right across from the elevators. In my hands was a book, a volume of Baldwin I had grabbed from Veda's house, but the lines jumped before my eyes, refusing to form meaning. I wasn't reading, I was waiting. About 40 minutes passed before the elevator door slid open and he stepped out. Sterling looked pathetic. His designer shirt was wrinkled and stained with something brown. His hair was standing on end, and dark shadows lay under his eyes. He was limping on the left leg, probably the result of a warm welcome from cellmates or the police during the arrest. But even in this state, he tried to carry himself with pride. He looked around, searching not for a doctor, not for his wife, but for me. Seeing me in the chair, I headed straight toward him, his face twisted in a grimace that was supposed to portray righteous anger, but looked more like the tantrum of a spoiled child. Finally, he barked across the corridor, startling a dozing nurse. Mama, what did you do? Do you realize what you've done? They kept me in the tank for 2 days with bums. He loomed over me, expecting me to jump up as usual, start gasping, apologizing, shoving him money, and patting his head. But I didn't move. I slowly closed the book, placed it on my knees, and raised my eyes to him. My gaze was dry and calm as a desert. "Hello, Sterling," I said quietly. "You smell. Go take a shower before you shout." He was taken aback. For a second, his mouth opened like a fish thrown on the shore. "Smell?" he squealed, lowering his voice only because a doctor walked by. "Mama, are you out of your mind? You reported me to the police. You said I stole the car. My car. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. In front of Candy. Do you know what she wrote to me?" "I know," I nodded. "She wrote the truth. You're a loser, Sterling." The word hit him harder than a slap. He recoiled. His face broke out in red blotches. "How dare you? He was choking with indignation. "I'm going to Veda right now. She'll confirm I took the car with her consent. She'll tell them all, and you'll regret treating me like this. Where are the keys? Give me the keys to the car. I have to go. I have business." "You have no business, Sterling." I spoke measuredly, like I was driving nails. "And you have no car." "What do you mean, no?" He laughed nervously. "Did you hide it? Come on, Ma. Lesson learned. Give me the keys. I really need to go. I promised the guys." "The car is sold," I interrupted. "An hour ago. The dealer picked it up from the impound. The money has already been transferred to the clinic's account." "What?" His eyes bugged out. "You had no right. That was my gift. That was my property." "On paper. I disposed of it as I saw fit. The money will go to pull your wife back from the dead."
"You have no home." "What do you mean?" He paled so much the blotches on his face stood out even brighter. "The apartment, the condo, now belongs to Vada officially. I signed the deed of gift this morning. You are no longer the master there. You aren't even on the lease." He stood swaying as if the floor was moving under his feet. All his arrogance, all his fake bravado fell away like husks. All that remained was a small, scared, greedy little man. "You couldn't," he muttered. "You're bluffing. You just want to scare me. I'm going to Vada right now. She loves me. She'll cancel it. She'll sign whatever I say." He spun around and darted toward the ICU doors. "Vada!" he screamed, throwing the door open. "Vada, tell her!" I didn't even stand up. I knew what would happen next. Sterling only managed 2 steps into the room. From behind the privacy screen, a figure emerged. It wasn't a doctor. It was a man in the uniform of a private security firm, broad-shouldered with a stone face. I had hired him 2 hours ago with a single instruction: protect the patient from any male visitors except medical staff. The guard silently, without unnecessary movement, blocked Sterling's path. His hand, the size of a shovel, landed on my son's chest. "Unauthorized entry prohibited," he rumbled in a bass voice. "Get your hands off me," Sterling squealed, trying to get around the mountain of muscle. "I'm the husband. I have rights. Vada, Vada, wake up!" Vada lay motionless, but the heart monitor reacted to the shout. The pulse curve jerked upward. "You are disturbing a critical patient." The guard gently but firmly began to push Sterling back into the corridor. "Leave, or I will be forced to use physical force." Sterling resisted. His boots slid on the linoleum. "Mama," he yelled, turning back to me. "Tell him she's my wife." I sat motionless, gripping the book. "Take him away," I said quietly, but the guard heard. Sterling was shoved into the corridor. The ward door slammed in his face, cutting him off from the victim he was used to considering his property. He was left standing in the empty hallway, disheveled, humiliated, stripped of all his toys. He looked at me. In his eyes, I saw hatred, pure, unclouded hatred. And in that moment, I realized the war had just begun. He wouldn't retreat that easily. He would play for pity. He would crawl. He would lie. And he started right then. His face changed. The mask of anger was replaced by a mask of suffering. He sniffled and took a step toward me. "Mama." His voice trembled, becoming pitiful, like in childhood when he broke a vase. "Ma, I'm sorry. I'm a fool. I got confused. Help me. They're going to kill me." I knew who he was talking about, the people he promised money from the sale of the apartment, but nothing stirred in me except disgust. "Let's go outside," I said, standing up. "There are people here. We'll talk where you won't disturb the sick." I headed for the exit, knowing he would follow. He had no choice. I was his last hope, a hope I intended to shatter completely. We walked into a long hospital corridor away from the nurse's station in Vada's room. It was empty here. Only a fluorescent light flickered, making an unpleasant buzzing sound. Sterling scurried after me like a beaten dog, but I could feel his tension with my back. He was still looking for a loophole, still calculating options. I stopped by a window overlooking the parking lot. Where his blue SUV once stood, there was now an empty space. I turned to him. "Well," I said, "I'm listening." Sterling looked around to make sure there were no witnesses and then collapsed to his knees. It was so theatrical, so rehearsed that I felt nauseous. He grabbed the hem of my coat with dirty fingers, looking up into my eyes. "Mama, Mommy, forgive me," he wailed, and tears flowed down his cheeks. Real or not, I couldn't tell anymore. "I didn't mean to. I'll fix everything. I swear I'll never drive drunk again. I'll find a job. Just put everything back how it was. Give the apartment back," he sobbed, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "You don't understand, Ma. I have problems, serious problems. I owe money, a lot of money. If I don't pay, they won't just beat me up. They'll... Mama, I'm your son, your blood. Would he let them kill me?" He spoke fast, choking on words, trying to crush me with pity, fear, guilt. "And those girls in the car," he continued, seeing I was silent, "just colleagues. We were coming from a corporate party. I was just giving them a ride. I love Vada. I can't live without her. I sat here, prayed. Mama, believe me." I looked down at him, at his shaking hands, at his pathetic posture, and I didn't see a son. I saw a parasite that had been sucking the life out of us for years. "Stand up," I said quietly. "I won't stand up until you forgive me," he howled louder, hoping some staff member would come out and see this scene of the prodigal son's repentance. "Mama, I'll do anything for you. I'll take care of Vada. I'll carry her in my arms. Just don't abandon me. Don't take my home. Stand up." My voice whipped him like a slap. He flinched and slowly rose, still sniffling. "You say you are my blood?" I asked, looking him straight in the eye. "Yes, that is true. And it is my greatest shame, my most terrible mistake. I raised you. I gave you everything. But I didn't teach you to be a human being." I opened my bag and took out a folded sheet of paper. It was a copy of the deed with the registrar stamp that Adora had forwarded me. "Look." I unfolded the paper in front of his face. "See this stamp? The apartment is no longer yours and never will be. It belongs to Vada solely." Sterling stared at the document. His eyes darted across the lines, pupils dilated. But, how?" he mumbled. If she... Well, he didn't finish, but I understood. If she dies, that's what he was thinking. If Vada dies, he, as the legal husband, inherits everything. The apartment, the money, the things. He was already burying her in his thoughts and calculating the profit. Thinking about inheritance? I asked, and my voice became so cold it felt like the temperature in the corridor dropped 10 degrees. Don't get your hopes up. I took out a second document. It was a will. My will, which I had rewritten this morning at Odora's office while waiting for the apartment paperwork. Read. I pointed a finger at the highlighted paragraph. Sterling read aloud, stumbling. All my property, movable and immovable, as well as funds and accounts, I bequeath to the Hope for Paws animal shelter. He looked up at me full of genuine horror. You're joking. Cats, Mama. Are you crazy? You're giving everything to cats and leaving your own son on the street? Yes, I answered calmly. Cats are at least grateful when you feed them, and they don't turn off the heating on the sick. You wouldn't dare. You wouldn't dare, he screamed, forgetting the role of the repentant sinner, his face twisted with malice. I'll contest this. I'll prove you're incompetent, that you're an old senile woman. The court will be on my side. I'm the only heir. Try it, I smirked. I have a certificate from a psychiatrist. I got it today. I am of sound mind and memory. But you, son, have problems. What problems? He sprayed saliva. Locks, I said simply. Tonight, the apartment will have new locks and a security system. If you try to enter without Vada's invitation, and I'm sure she won't invite you, a squad will arrive, and this time they won't let you out in 2 days. Sterling froze. He realized the scale of the disaster. He had no home, he had no car, he had no money, and he had no future inheritance. And the debts, he whispered, and in that whisper was real terror. Mama, they'll kill me. They really will. Give me at least money to cover the debt. I'll leave. I'll disappear. You won't see me again. Just give me money. No, I cut him off. You're a big boy, Sterling. You brewed this tea. Now you drink it. Go work as a loader, a janitor, a cab driver. Oh, wait, you'll lose your license. That means a foot courier. Work it off. You monster, he spat in my face. You're not a mother, you're a viper. I hate you. I hope you die with your Vada. Feeling is mutual, son, I said, putting the documents back in my bag. Now leave. Security is coming. At the end of the hall, 2 guards indeed appeared, likely called by someone disturbed by the noise. Sterling looked at them, then at me. Panic darted in his eyes. This isn't over, he shouted, backing away. You'll regret this. I'll find a way. The apartment is mine. Mine. He turned and ran to the stairs, nearly knocking over a nurse with a tray. I watched him go. I didn't pity him. I pitied the time, the strength, and the love I had wasted growing this weed. But it was too early to relax. He was cornered, and rats in a corner jump at the throat. He didn't just run away. He ran to the apartment. I knew it. He would try to get in before the locks were changed. He would try to carry out everything valuable, appliances, Vada's jewelry, maybe even documents to blackmail us later. I took out my phone and dialed Adora. Adora, he's on his way. Are the locksmiths there? They're working, Yulia. Police are here too. I asked an officer to supervise the process, showed him the property deeds. Good. He's running there. Warned them he's furious. Don't worry, Adora's voice was calm. We'll meet him. I hung up and returned to the nurse's station. I needed to make sure Vada was okay after this visit, but a new feeling was already maturing inside me. A feeling of liberation. I had cut off a rotten branch, now the tree would breathe easier. All that remained was to protect what could still be saved. Sterling, as I predicted, didn't go to the bus station or to friends. Choking with rage and fear, he raced to the only place he still considered his, the apartment. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but Odora told me everything in detail later, and the picture stood before my gaze as vividly as if I were watching a movie. He flew into the lobby, skipping steps, ignoring the elevator. One thought must have been pounding in his head.